Fantastic. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. This is always a really, really popular grant program and always a really popular Grantseeker workshop. So we've got lots of people, so I'm just letting everyone come in. And I will get started. My name's Danielle Griffin, and I'm the Program Manager, and Jane Crane is our Grants Officer, and so we will be presenting to you today. We are recording this meeting. And so there will be a recording available, but I'll go through that. I'll share my screen and we will have time for questions and chats throughout the presentation. But in the meantime, please put anything in the chat and we will visit it at the appropriate times. So I'll just confirm that everyone's got a vision on the presentation screen now. Excellent. All right. So yes, Telstra's Connected Communities Grant Program for 2026. Firstly, I'd like to, just in the spirit of reconciliation, acknowledge by FRRR and on behalf of Telstra, the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. I'm coming to you today from Mulbunja country in the Yuin Nation on the far south coast of New South Wales. And I pay respect to the elders in my community and also the elders in all the lands and people of Aboriginal and Torres Island Strait descent in your communities wherever you are across Australia. Just some housekeeping, please turn off your phones, etc. There will be a link to recording this presentation. A PDF of the slides will be emailed to all attendees within 48 hours. As I said, please put questions and feedback in the chat. All comments are really helpful, and what we do try to do is summarise questions to include when we go out to you. So we try to give you as much kind of recap on this as well, and if we are referring to particular links for that, we will put them in the email we send out to you. Today we'll talk a little bit about FRRR, a little bit about Telstra, obviously about the grant program itself and about the opportunity available there. And then we'll be running a Grantseeker workshop based on FRRR's experience and knowledge, and with the intention to support you in actually applying. So FRRR, if you're not familiar with this, the Foundation for Rural, Regional and Renewal has been in Australia operating since 2000, and we're the only national foundation that's specifically focused on ensuring social and economic strength in remote, rural and regional areas. This means that our grant programs are specifically focused on benefiting people that are living in those communities. We are not available to fund communities in metro areas, and we will provide some information with regards to how we define those when we email out to you, if you're unsure of what kind of community you might be in, if you're in a peri-urban area, etc. We've partnered with Telstra on this grant program. The way we partner with a lot of organisations where we see a need. Telstra is Australia's leading telecommunications and technology company. And they've proudly been at the forefront of technology for 100 years. They're really invested in Australians across the country having access and having capability so that everyone is connected effectively and so everyone can thrive. This is the 5th year of our grant program. No, it's not. It's the 4th year of our grant program. And we have $200,000 in grant funds available for grants up to $10,000. The grant program has been open for 1 week now, and it will close on Thursday, the 26th of March. Just for your information, we do close our grants on a Thursday, so that we can make sure if anyone has any issues, we can get in touch with them on the Friday, and people are aware of the status of their grant, if they've had any technical difficulties in making their applications. Just important that we do work on Victorian time, and it will still be Eastern Daylight Savings time. So always important to understand the closing time of grants. We'll be announcing the funding in late June 2026. And so funds are intended to be available for projects to be completed between July 2026 and July 2027. So we're really looking for projects that you're wanting to do within that 12-month period. Just a bit of the why and the who. As I said, Telstra is really looking to boost support for communities. We're really conscious that being digitally connected is vital for everyone, but particularly in remote, rural and regional Australia, to enhance their livability and their ability to actually participate effectively in the community and in reaching their own individual goals. So this grant is to support community-led efforts that are embracing new technology and also looking to improve digital literacy or capability so that more people actually can have the benefits that include social connection, equitable access to technology. We're conscious that, technology is often unaffordable. The idea of being able to share it, make it available to people for particular needs is really important. Also, we're really conscious of cybersecurity and the risks associated with managing things in an online or digital environment, so ensuring people feel safe online. We're also conscious of the sustainable environmental practices in the country and where we live now and actually how we act. So, and we think that, digital technology can often be a way to make things more sustainable or enhance our engagement with the environment. So we're interested in projects that do that. And also disaster preparedness. More and more disasters are occurring in the country, and we know that being connected during these times is really critical. Or there's digital technology that can help people be prepared or be better supported when they're experiencing a disaster, or better networked in the lead up or post a disaster. We will fund new or existing projects. I may be looking to scale an existing project and enhancing the digital capability or literacy of people participating in that project, maybe how you would scale the impact and outcomes for that program. As we said, providing access to equipment, information and education, and or enabling constructive social networks are all really important. This is for rural, remote and regional communities, and it is for local not-for-profit organisations that are providing access to information, technology, education and or facilities that build connected communities. As we said, embracing digital technology. When we talk about livable communities, we're looking at how individuals and community groups are equipped with the skills to live, learn and work in a digital society. Sustainable communities, communities that are diverse and inclusive, so making sure that no one's left behind with digital access or digital technology, and that we can improve and enhance the community engagement and education that support ongoing wellbeing of people, place and planet. And resilient communities, we were just talking about disaster impacts, making sure that people are well prepared and socially connected. These are really the key tenets of this grant program that we believe digital technology capability and literacy can bring to communities. So these are the kind of projects that we're looking to support. We really encourage you to go to the guidelines and read all those really important things about eligibility. You must be a not-for-profit. The project cannot be for private or commercial gain. you require an ABN or be incorporated. Alternatively, you need to partner with an organisation that has these requirements. So we often call that term auspicing, and in our guidelines you'll find templates that would support you getting a letter from an organisation that will take responsibility for receiving the funds and kind of be responsible for your project delivery if you actually can't meet those not-for-profit requirements. We're looking for clear public benefit. It is for charitable purposes and address a need in the community. We're talking about geographic eligibility. I think it's really important that a big goal of this program is to actually address those challenges of people that aren't able to access services or funding to enable initiatives, particularly with digital technology, that can enhance their livability, sustainability and building resilience. We're very conscious that there's a lot of communities that border metropolitan zoned RA1 locations. If you are that type of community, we really need to you to demonstrate that you have the challenges or characteristics of a community that isn't able to access digital services and is actually at a disadvantage where you live. So a broad range of projects can come under and into this grant program. As we said, equipment or training to build digital literacy, equipment that enables digital equity. So if people are missing out, are not able to access computers, particular types of programs, if you are working as a community organisation and need to buy equipment that would then be made available to people that can't afford it and need to access it, then that would enable digital equity. Building capacity of community organisations. We're conscious that many community organisations operate on very small operating budgets or indeed are volunteer run. And so funds that ensure that they have the equipment, the software to support things like cybersecurity or even just access programs that can really enhance the way they deliver services is really critical. So new technology that can do that is definitely something that we funded through this program. Projects that provide digital tools to support communities' adaptation to extreme weather events. We have seen some weather stations in the past, early warning systems. We're conscious that things like generators, etc., are often looked at with resilience. These really need to be digital tools. So just making it really clear that there needs to be technology or digital tools that are actually applied for through the program. We've seen many instances of cybersecurity support and training in simply how to use things like phones and how to operate in digital environments safely on phones. So, and particularly for older people, but we also know even younger people just don't necessarily have those broader digital understanding or skills. So if you've identified vulnerable cohorts that you want to support in their digital learning, this is the program. We also will support projects that are recycling e-waste. We know that these can take lots of forms. So the previous slide is all about the technology and actually the digital capability or equity that comes out. But this is more about the nuts and bolts. You know, you might be delivering these services through activities or events or programs or services. You could be purchasing or hiring equipment and materials. There could be small community infrastructure projects to improve or enhance the digital capability there. Capacity building that I've spoken about. Sessions and programs to support strengthening community members' mental health and wellbeing through digital technology. And also, you know, key areas like volunteer development and support or local information for recovery and resilience building that can all be delivered best through a technological solution. really important about what we cannot fund. One thing that's not here is that we won't be funding projects that don't have a digital solution. We have had some infrastructure projects come in that are about connectedness, so really important to emphasise that this is a digital funding opportunity. Organisations that received a grant in 2025 are not eligible to apply in 2026. We do this because we want to ensure that we can reach as many organisations as possible with the grant funds. Projects that support core activities of government responsibility. We have funded local government in the past, but we really need the case with regards to that it is not actually related to the government services that local government is kind of obligated to deliver. The ongoing core costs of your operations, so the day-to-day wages, rent, electricity, unless these costs are directly related to the project delivery, they won't be funded through here. Really important that prizes, gifts, trophies or awards not be funded through this. Projects that have already occurred. We have said that we will, fund existing initiatives, but we need to see in the new project innovation or another initiative that will be enabled if you are building on an existing project, not something that will be funded, or occurring prior to the grant being announced in late June. This grant program isn't for political parties, lobbying or religious promotion, nor is it for sporting activity. The encouragement of sport or support of sport is not recognised as charitable by the ATO. We have in the past received a lot of applications for things like electronic scoreboards. This kind of equipment is considered to be solely focused on enhancing the support of the sport, recreation, and so we won't fund projects like that. So just really important to do that. If you are a sporting club, we need to see a broad community benefit of access and benefit to that's outside of the immediate group that play sport and benefit from that sport. So what we're interested to understand when you are telling us about your project is your community's digital challenges and aspirations. So who in the community are you going to serve and what positive changes can occur through the project? And particularly, I suppose, the why of the project that's been identified, the type of technology that you're looking to, or why you've selected a particular technology or a particular gap in the digital skills or capability of who you're targeting to benefit, and who you're going to reach through the project. Really specific on what the project is, if it's an activity, training or building capacity or constructing infrastructure or installing equipment. We are interested in the type of technology you're choosing and why you're choosing it. What really, I suppose, kind of captures our interest is what will happen if you don't do the project? What's at risk in your community by not bringing in skills or access to equipment to your community? And we really, really are interested, if you are going to support a broad range of people in your community, the letters of support or surveys that indicate there is a gap, there is a need, and there's a real interest and desire to engage with this learning or equipment. We do encourage everyone to use our free call number or email us, because we're very happy to talk about projects if you've got some questions there, and hopefully help you make sure it's aligned to what this grant program is about and really increase your opportunities. Just an example of a project. This is a great one in Tasmania, the Clarendale Vale Neighbourhood Centre. Really clear here, what was needed. The centre, one of its main aims is to boost the low levels of digital literacy among residents. and they needed basic tools, computers and Wi-Fi, and ways to teach people. So their grant program applied for laptops, improved their access to software like Microsoft Office, and they also had both volunteers and staff there, ensuring that there was effective ways of reaching people and training them to make the most of the new resources. I think what's really lovely to see is, once these things have been delivered, is actually what happens when you bring new technology and you give people the skills to use it, and you see the different ways that people use it, and how it really has a great benefit to communities. So when you receive these slides, have a look through. Also have a look through at what we've funded in the past, to see if there's any ideas or anything that you haven't thought about in what you're considering for your project that you might want to bring in to the scope. Here's another example of the project, which was the Gundir Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Corporation for Health Services in remote southwest West Queensland. So a really good example of, communities in remote regions that have to look after a lot of people in a really broad space, and collaborate really broadly with 20 plus organisations in this case. And in this instance, they built their capacity to actually run their organisation more effectively through video conferencing kit, high definition audio and video. It just enhanced their ability to engage, communicate, really save their ability to cut down on travel time, ensure real-time conversations, support their training, just had this huge benefit across their organisation. And finally, this is a great one with regards to environmental sustainability, in regards to how digital technology can give people access to information about the environment and educate them. And also, I suppose, more broadly, how that then benefits the community that's there. In this case, RiverSmart was developing a self-guided audio tour that celebrated their wonderful wetlands. But it had lots and lots of elements with regards to the volunteers. The young people that were involved in developing it were also training to build their tourism skills and understand digital tourism. The digital technology allowed them to capture a range of bird calls and do really interactive educational work. And it engaged local artists as well. So it was a big celebration of community, and it continues to engage people travelling and locals. And I think, this is where we see that great thing about people learning about the environment and therefore caring more about the environment. So a great example of a new technology solution. So I'm just going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to have a look at the chat and see what questions we've got on the program. And then we'll come in and talk about tips for successfully seeking grants. Jane, have you had a look at the chat? Have we got much in there? Or does anyone from the floor have a question to ask?
There's a couple in the chat now, Danielle.
Audrey has asked, are projects with a national impact considered? Not really, Audrey. What we tend to see in this grant program is sometimes online programs that would actually have access to people living in the metro and are not necessarily specifically targeting a community issue. I appreciate they're targeting possibly a national community issue, but this grant program is for local, enhancing local digital needs in a smaller community, or particularly addressing possibly issues in remote communities or rural communities. So not a national program. Cost of setting up Wi-Fi and monthly fees for first 12 months included. Yes, they can be included as part of the project if that's what you need in delivering your project. We'll happily ensure that that 12-month delivery can cover those kind of essential costs. We probably will want to understand how you're considering sustainability going forward, but it's not a major issue. That's anything further, Jane? The slides are going to be shared, so just letting you know that, Max. For people who joined us a little bit later, you will receive within 48 hours a recording of this presentation and also all the slides, and additionally any relevant questions put in the chat. We'll provide those answers, any themes that come through here. Okay, Jane, do you want to start, and we can come back to more questions at the end?
Yep, no worries. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. This is basically just a 101 on grant writing, and so if you've applied to other FRRR programs or this program prior, feel free to hop off. It might be a bit of a repeat on information that you are aware of. So yeah, basically there are 4 stages to granting. The first one is finding the right fit, which that just means just making sure that your project really aligns with the program that you're applying to. Yeah, and just go to those key program objectives. And if you don't think that you're aligning, then it's worth having a look at other grant programs that we have open. The next slide, Danielle, will show you other FRRR programs that are currently aligned. Not aligned, that are currently open. There's, as well as Telstra, we also have a climate solutions program, a Haywire youth innovation and strengthening rural communities, and opening today was the Rebuilding's Future disaster preparedness program. So yes, just do check the objectives and make sure your project aligns with the Telstra objectives. And as Danielle briefly covered this next one about auspicing, basically it's just saying if you don't have an ABN or an incorporation number, you can still apply, but you'll just need to approach an organisation that does have those that correct legal status and ask them to auspice you. So that's all good. And then one other point is, if you haven't already, sign up to the FRRR newsletter, because that's where we announce when our programs are opening. So that's the way to keep on top of what programs are coming up and what ones are open at the moment. So the next slide, is just the next stage in the granting, which is preparation and planning of your application. This is an important thing during this stage, is to allow plenty of time. Be aware of the closing date, and if you haven't already, create an account within our Blackboard granting portal, because just the account creation can take a little moment. So it's worth making sure you don't leave that right up to the deadline date, because we don't want you to be in a panic in terms of getting onto the application form. So if you go back to the what, why, where, it's basically, I'm just saying here that all our application forms follow a similar format. We need to know the what, the why, the where, the when, the how, and the who. So if I start with the what, this is all about what you want to do. You need to tell us, are you solving an issue, or are you building on a great opportunity for your community? It's also important to provide us with a bit of context as to where your idea came about. What's happening in your community that informed your project idea and led you to this project application. It's just A bit of history certainly helps the assessors understand where your idea has come from, so that that helps us understand. And when do make sure that your idea considers the wider community, as we do like to see that the community is supporting your project concept and will also be benefiting. So do make that obvious in your application. Now, if we go to the next slide, the why, here's where you tell us why the project is needed. And you can also position it as what will happen if you do not do this project. That also is a way of demonstrating the need in the community. And when you are talking about the why, you might find yourself referring to some data that you're addressing. It's important here that if you are doing that, just to find a spot in the application form to upload this data, just so we can, understand where it's coming from. And in the actual question boxes, maybe just refer to the data and maybe the page number as to where you're getting this information from. Just those small things that make it a little bit easier for the assessors are very much appreciated. I'm just seeing what else I wanted to say here. So next slide, I think. Next, we like to understand who's involved in the project and who will be involved in the running of the project, the participating in the project, and the benefiting from this project. And a strong grant application also includes letters of support from these people. It's really our only way that we can tell that you've engaged with the people that you're mentioning in your application form. So we do like to see those letters of support, just so that we do know that, that they are behind your project. And in the budget section, we also have a spot for you to cost out the value of volunteers if you are involving them in your project. Yeah, we do like to understand how many volunteer hours are being contributing to getting the project active. So next slide is the how, when, and where. The how is both the key project stages, but also how will you know it's successful. The key project stages is a way for you to demonstrate to us that you've stepped out the work plan of your project and I have identified the required resources and responsibilities. It shows us that you've taken the time to think this through, your plan and how you're actually going to make it happen, and to make sure that it can happen within the 12 months that we allow. The how you know whether it'll be successful, this allows you to identify the expected outcomes and to know how life will be improved in the community because of this project. That's just, of interest to us because we don't, it sometimes sounds obvious, but it is good to point out the obvious. Just so we can see that there is a real broad benefit from your project going ahead. And if you're going to collect feedback from participants to demonstrate success, it's good that you plan your evaluation format early and at the beginning of the project. So just also keep that in mind. And if you're mentioning that in your application, that's something you're going to do, just, reference that as well. The when is just sort of the project start and end date. And so that's just got to be from July 2026 to July 2027. It can finish earlier than that and can start later, but we're assuming you'll want to get going once you know the funding has been received. But it just does need to have a start and an end date within that time period. Just so you know, there is always a possibility to ask for an extension, but it's important that your project aims to be completed within those 12 months. if all things go to plan. I think it's the next slide is about, or maybe not. No, sorry, Danielle, I've still got to finish the where. The where is just where the project will happen, both the regional location and the actual project location. Some people are, making changes to certain buildings. So if that's the case, and you're not the owner of that building, we do look for permission or permits so that we know that you have got those for your project and you won't be held up by accessing those. Okay, this is the next slide. Another how is how much it will cost. The application form collects both sources of income required to cover the expected costs the application form collects both the sources of the income and also the expected costs. It's important to factor in when you're noting the expenditure, real expenses such as freight and GST. The latter is for those organisations that are not registered for GST, so they can't claim it back. So from these sorts of organisations where it's fine to use GST inclusive prices because you will have to cover that cost. For costs that are greater than $1,000, we do require either quotes or costings. The quotes can be as simple as a snip of a website page, just saying what things cost. And the costings, that just means if you've got a value, we just need to understand how you've come to that value. So, number of hours times, labour cost, that sort of thing, or number of sandwiches times, cost of people preparing them, that sort of thing. The income. Here also, if you do have in-kind contributions, do cost their work as $45 an hour, and you'll see a separate section within our budget called in-kind labour. The income, that's if the grant doesn't cover all of the expected project costs. You then just have to let us know where the other funding is coming from. And this can either be from your own organisation or another grant fund. That's fine too. We're quite happy if you have co-funding involved. We don't not support projects that have co-funders, so that's all good. Okay, so next slide. So now you've collected all the required information. It's time to write your grant application. And on again, Danielle. Yep. The FRRR online application form has the capability of saving as you go. So it's okay to start and stop and come back in later on. So we've moved to a new portal, which is a bit user-friendlier with regards to saving. It's save as you go versus having to press a button. There's also a sample copy of the application form on our website. Some people like to see the questions and write the answers on the piece of paper and then transfer. So we do have a PDF form for you on our website, if that's the way you like to operate. So I think the rest have sort of been covered, so we can move on to the next slide, Danielle. Here's some more tips which you'll be able to read through when we send these slides through. They're pretty well straightforward. Use clear, simple language. And in case anyone is wondering, FRRR doesn't have a hard and fast rule on whether using AI is encouraged or not. I just personally would suggest if you're going to use AI to clean up your writing style, that's all fine. Well, not all, but we often all do that. Please make sure you don't lose the voice of your community when you're doing that. Again, personal opinion. I feel that heavy-handed AI use does feel a bit stale, and the assessment team do love to feel the passion from those applying. So please try and keep a bit of a voice from the community in your application, even if you are using AI to get you started or, correct spelling mistakes or things like that. So the other tips are pretty straightforward, and I'll let you read through them yourselves. And similarly, this table is just a bit of a summary of some of the things both Danielle and I have said on what makes a strong application and one not as strong. So you can read through those at a later time. And so then the next slide, once you've submitted your application by the deadline date and time, it's then passed over to the FRRR assessment team, and they consider how well the project meets the program criteria and how strong the project is regarding meeting a need in the community. The FRRR assessment team then involves the Telstra representatives in making the final recommendations to FRRR's CEO. Often the Telstra reps include those with some technical expertise in the digital game, so it's important that your project is technically feasible, as the Telstra reps do consider this. So by that I mean some places are in black spots, and even if you do get a booster, you may not still get internet connection. So just keep in mind what you're proposing is actually going to solve an issue. The Telstra team still collect that information and feed it back to their regional reps as a bit of intel. But if they're aware that this project, isn't possible, they'll let us know. So after the FRRR and the Telstra reps recommend their list, it's provided to FRRR's CEO, who has the delegated authority of the FRRR board to consider and approve the projects. All applicants will be notified via email the outcome of their application. If they're successful, they'll be provided with details on how to access the grant funds. If, unfortunately, you are unsuccessful, then you'll be provided with the opportunity to request feedback. And we do suggest that is something that you, if you have time to take that up, because we do try and provide you with some intel on how to strengthen your application for another time. And now I'm on to the next stage, which is reporting for those that are successful. And here we say that the reports are just an opportunity for you to tell us what actually happened and the great outcomes that are being realised in your community. We love photos and videos, as we often share these and the info within your report to other grantees, our donors, and a range of other stakeholders. And it's a great way to demonstrate the impact of grant funding, and it's also hoped that the stories will encourage further support for FRRR and the regional communities that we support. So it's next slide. No, stay on that slide, Danielle. It's also important to know that FRRR recognises that things may change along the way. We just ask that you keep us informed. So either call us or email us to let us know of any change, and just seek permission of what your change is all about. As long as the items align with the original intent of the project, then it's likely to be approved. But it's just, we just like to keep a record. So in case we get any inquiries, we have, all the supporting documentation behind the change on our system. So I think that is all from me, Danielle. I think we're up to the last slide. And I'll just reach out to whoever's remaining to see whether there's any more questions.
Yep, that's fine, Jane. I was just answering a question with regards to Metro or RA1. Yep. We do have a tool that you can access to identify where your community is actually zoned, and we'll include a link to that in the email we send out. particularly when we talk about digital technology with, FRRR is focused on those communities, and from a Telstra perspective, this is ensuring that those communities that are most likely to be digitally excluded have a greater opportunity to increase their access. Does the application have the ability for more than one person to access? Yes, I understand. You can share your login with other people. Jane, can two people work on it at once or not?
In the new portal, there is a feature that does allow you to have two people logging into the same form. Again, this new portal is a little bit new to us all, but if you can't nut it out as to how to make that happen, just give us a call. We do have a how-to that we can email out to you. But yes, this portal does allow that.
Shauna, is a project covering multiple regional locations eligible? Yes, it's eligible. I just advise that you really need to be really clear on who your beneficiaries are and what the benefit is. Potentially, you could be building organisational capacity. So I appreciate that may be directly related to those different regional locations if you're looking for an opportunity like that. So it is, but we're really trying to understand where we overcome digital exclusion. So just being conscious that large organisations that may want some uptick in their digital technology should consider, you should be able to demonstrate that they don't have the operational capacity within their current kind of planning to facilitate this, and the importance of additional funding. I'm sorry, Howard, I'm not sure I understand your question there. Your project needs to either be supporting building digital capability or digital literacy. You may not actually be buying equipment or setting up Wi-Fi or doing anything like that. But if you are training people to build their digital literacy or digital capability with your existing resources, that is eligible. Thanks, everyone. All the best. Please get in touch with us with any questions to discuss your projects, and good luck.